What's up, everybody, and welcome back to a special episode of Neek the Podcast. I am the glorious geek samurai Kiku, and along with me, as always, the demon sour cream himself, Josh Raish Al Finney, and we're going to be talking some Force Awakens today. Josh, how many times have you seen The Force Awakens now?
Counting tonight, I have now gone 3 times.
We are tied. We are now tied.
I think I'll end up seeing it one more time before it's out of theaters. I did promise an old friend that when he made his way down to Texas during his break that we would be going to go see it. So, yeah, 4 times. 4 times to go see this.
So I have to go see it 5 times now to be the ultimate Star Wars fan in our little hosting group, correct?
I mean, it depends on how you want to define ultimate. If you mean you have more disposable income than me, sure.
Then I am the ultimate Star Wars fan.
Because I have no disposable income.
I will outbuy you on everything.
Yes,
everything. I will. Actually, I just ordered myself a new lightsaber because I am choreographing a lightsaber duel for the upcoming Pensacon. 2 of them, actually. I don't know how I get myself into these things, but that's not the point. We are going to talk The Force Awakens. We're going to try to make it. No, we're going to spoil it. We're going to spoil everything. So if you're listening,
this kid already ruined it. So
yeah. So if you got ruined and you haven't seen this phenomenal movie now to make it go to #1 all time, then I don't know what to tell you.
It's your fault for clicking on a Spoilercast.
Exactly. And stop watching Avatar. Go see The Force Awakens. Also stop watching Titanic. We should have stopped watching that movie like 20 years ago. But still, let's get into it. Josh, as you are the ultimate Star Wars fan of Neek the Podcast, what did you think? Overall impression, give it a number on your all-time list of Star Wars flicks.
Overall impressions. So I've had about 2 weeks to digest it now.
Which means you should be able to poop it out.
Right. First off, I mean, just the story is one of my only little complaints, I think. I want to start there. In some ways, it does feel like a rehash of A New Hope, but that doesn't bother me that much. Not as much as a lot of people are starting to complain about it, because it is the hero's journey. Sure. It is Rey's journey. And you're going to find that in any movie. Just this one happens to have a giant killing ball of death and dark side users. I know I said this to you, but one of the things you immediately notice off the bat about this movie is none of the new characters are weak at all. No matter how little or how much screen time they have, none of them are weak at all. If they seem kind of weak, like characterization-wise, it's because this is part 1 of a trilogy. Snoke is deliberately still clouded in darkness. The novelization sheds some light on his motives, and he is terrified. This guy is terrified of Luke Skywalker. He does not want Luke to be found. He doesn't want Luke coming back until he is ready for Luke to be found. And then, God, Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren is the villain I have always wanted in Star Wars. He is the true heir to the throne that Darth Vader has sat upon since 1977. And as we say, in the opening skit, he kills his father, Han Solo. It's really Ben Solo. And does something that even Anakin Skywalker never did, and that is kill family. And it's just, Kylo Ren he's powerful, but you can tell he's still very much in the process of learning how to use the Force. He's not a Sith Lord. He's not a master. He's very much an apprentice. He's prone to temper tantrums. He is the Anakin Skywalker we deserved in the prequels. That's something I immediately noticed that I said to you. And just, oh my God, I can't wait to see how Adam Driver harnesses that raw energy. I think far and away my favorite element of the movie was Kylo Ren.
Okay. Well, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves.
Right.
Definitely want to explore a lot of that stuff that you just talked about a little more in depth. But let's go back to the story. And, there has been a ton of complaining that it is a rehash of A New Hope. I feel personally that it's more of an homage or a callback to kind of reel you in back into the Star Wars universe, right? Kind of give you that, that feeling of this is Star Wars. Yes, did they? I do kind of feel that with the Starkiller base thing, it was a little too close to, New Hope with the Death Star and whatnot. But
Yeah.
I think the way that this film ends, as opposed to how New Hope ended, is Poe Dameron flying through the alleyway is almost exactly a shot-for-shot recreation of the Luke Skywalker alleyway run. But I'm going ahead of that. That there is no, there is no, hope, or how do I put this? That the search for Luke Skywalker, Finn's, hurt and whatnot. I think the next two films are going to be wildly different from what we have seen from other Star Wars films. There's going to be the next film definitely is going to be a lot of callbacks to Luke stuff. Obvious, if you haven't guessed already, that Rey is his daughter. At this point, if they don't make her his daughter, then I don't know what the hell was going on. But with that being said, to me, it's not really a rehash as much as an homage to kind of get you back to give that statement that this is Star Wars. This is the film that, everybody has wanted to see for the last, 30 some odd years, 33 years, right? 33, 83, 32 years, since Return of the Jedi. And then you had the prequels, which, didn't have that Star Wars feel. So
right.
I think all these people going out and talking about it's a rehash and whatnot, look, it's all of a sudden become really popular on the internet the last week to just hate on this movie. And I get where that hate is coming from, but at the same time, I think you need to open your mind a little bit more and realize that it is not a rehash. It is an homage to New Hope to get you into that this is Star Wars again.
Right. And I mean, the reason that this homage even works is because of its core cast. And what I mean when I say core cast are really the four core characters of Han Solo, Finn, Rey, and Kylo Ren. They're the driving emotional catharsis behind this movie. And I mean, yeah, BB-8 is really important for the first half of the movie, and then he takes a complete backseat, which I was super thankful for. Not that I thought he was getting annoying or anything, but I was like, man, let's get into the nitty gritty of these characters. Let's get into, we didn't really explore any of Rey in the first half. It was pretty much the Finn show for a good chunk of the first half, which was great because the marketing really divided it between them. I was surprised how much they let us on to. Oh, I'll get to that in a minute. Never mind. I was going to talk more about Kylo Ren. We'll get to him in a minute. It was excellent that they chose to focus on one legacy cast member in this film, and that was Han Solo. If you focused on Luke in this movie or Leia in this movie does not succeed. I know a lot of people have gotten really, really upset that Luke was only in one shot of the entire film, but I'm going to go ahead and say this. That is the single greatest mind trick that they have ever pulled on, that the Star Wars franchise has pulled on us in a good way. I think that was great that was kept a secret for this long. But Luke is there the entire time, really. Every main character is searching for him.
Yeah.
At one point or they all get swept up into this, when Han is recounting how, I knew Luke, and he's talking about the Galactic Civil War and how he came to believe in the Force and the Jedi. It's a touching moment when you have that callback to when he's sitting in that exact same spot in A New Hope, talking about hokey religions and blasters, to Luke and Ben Kenobi. It's just, wow, how radical of a change that character has undergone in the last now 3 films.
Let's also be honest. Adding Luke Skywalker into this would have been the succubus, right? He would have been that X that sucks the life force out of you, because if Luke would have been in this film, no one would have given a crap about anybody else, right? Because that was kind of Lucas's drawback by creating such weak characters for the original, or not the original trilogy, Jesus Christ, but for the prequels, is that Luke was Luke is like the character of Star Wars, right? If you have him in this film, you're not going to focus on Finn, you're not going to focus on Rey. You would focus on Han, but
You're
then
going to focus
again,
on the legacy characters.
on the legacy, exactly. You know, you're not going to focus on this new generation that's having the torch passed to them. And as you and I said to each other on the phone, or right after I got to see it, was that this was the perfect passing of the torch movie that didn't feel like it was a passing of the torch movie. And a big part of that is not having Luke Skywalker in it.
Right. I mean, you immediately get the sense from the first line of the opening crawl, okay, this is different than anything that we expected. The first line of the opening crawl is literally Luke Skywalker has vanished. I mean, through my tear-filled eyes, hearing the opening overture, reading that text, it was like, wow, they immediately just got into it. You know, the First Order is here. They described them as sinister. You know, the Resistance is here. Leia's leading him. She's desperately looking for Luke. Like, if she hasn't bothered to look for him all this time, and then she suddenly needs him, there's got to be a reason, and they haven't told us that reason. You know, peace and justice, but obviously we all know Star Wars goes deeper than that. I loved that. So it kept Luke Skywalker as part of this without Mark Hamill being on screen, and was the ultimate red herring.
Well, it's definitely like, you know, the first 4 episodes of Jessica Jones, right? Like, you feel the presence of David Tennant, but he's not there.
Right. It was done so effectively, and I fear that in the hands of a lesser writer and director duo than J.J. Abrams and Lawrence Kasdan, this does not work. George Lucas does not pull this off.
Okay, well, we're doing what you know, we actually do. What we enjoyed about the movie is we're focusing on the legacy character of Luke Skywalker just not being in the film. But, you know, let's focus on some of the newer characters, right? Like, I don't really think we'll get into the Han Solo stuff with Kylo Ren,
right? Because that's such a core part of the movie.
Part of it. But I actually want to get into Rey with you because I read a very interesting article recently, and unfortunately I couldn't find it again. And I kind of kicked myself in the ass about it. You know, was Rey? I loved Rey. Right? You know, let me get that straight out there. I thought Rey was a really good character. But one of the things that kind of bothered me about Rey is that she was almost given everything. Right? Like, she was almost too strong of a female character. And this article that I read was actually supporting that, you know, that basis is that Rey kind of has this, she's everything that we would want from a female character. And it's almost like it's too much. You know, it's a good thing, but it's also kind of like a negative at the same time. And one of those things, and this is the one thing that really bothered me about it, was her use of force powers with no training whatsoever. And that is something that, you know, you even said to me is, oh, well, she's a Skywalker. And I'm like, yeah, but even still, the Jedi mind trick seems like it's a little more hardcore to learn than, you know, just, oh, I'm discovering my force powers and I can do this. Like, how does she even know that's possible in the first place? Right.
Right. And see, that's kind of the hard part to rationalize right now. The only rationalization I came up for her sudden unexplained use of tapping into the Force is that is my number one evidence that she is either a Skywalker or she comes from a very strong Force family that we have seen before, aka a Kenobi.
Actually, it's confirmed she's a Skywalker. Disney Infinity put out 3.0, and there's a scene in it where Kylo Ren actually calls her cousin.
I'm actually going to say that's not correct because Lucasfilm themselves came out and said that was incorrect, that line is not cousin. Yes, Pablo Hidalgo, the head of the story team for Lucasfilm, confirmed that it was not real.
All right, I didn't see that.
Yeah, and the YouTuber who uploaded it actually went back and recanted it before he even came out and said that he mistakenly heard it and just jumped the gun. Okay. But I mean, logically, there is no one else.
Well, I mean, you know, let's face it, right? The Lucas has said it. Everyone who has ever worked on Star Wars has said it. Is that the main films will always be about the Skywalker clan, right? Yes. And yes, Kylo Ren obviously is a Skywalker, but he's also a Solo. You're gonna have to have a light Skywalker, right? Like, because in every, you know, movie, there was always the light side, the dark side of the Skywalkers. You know. Yeah.
So I'm curious to see how they handle that relationship, and I think that's why it's so perfect. You know, like I said, I'm going to keep coming back to that scene between Daisy Ridley and Mark Hamill at the end, that he doesn't say a word because now everyone's like, oh my God, like, you could have just confirmed it right there. but now you get to wait an extra 18 months to find that out.
Sure.
That's the definition of dangling a carrot in front of you. This is the equivalent of Han being frozen in carbonite and Lando stealing his clothes to go find him. Rey, though, there's only one aspect to her character I didn't really like, and it's when her and Finn are escaping Jakku, when they're running through the market and it's being blown up by the TIE fighters. And Finn is very obviously trying to help her. He's trying to be, a man and help the female. I liked her rejection of the damsel in distress motif right off the bat.
Yeah.
I didn't like that they drilled it home 4 more times. That got really tiresome really quickly. On my initial viewing.
That's the Supergirl complaint right there.
Yeah, it was too much. It's like, the one time that you did that, yeah, that was great. That was a great line. It established right off the bat, if you had any doubts when she kicked the crap out of those thugs with her staff, that she was for real. That one line should have said, no, I'm a woman. I can handle myself. We didn't need it 4 more times. Yeah. And I really hope that's not a mistake that they repeat with Felicity Jones next year in Rogue One.
I don't know. I think Rey is really the prototype, right? Because we're having
sorry to cut you off. I mean, I was just gonna say, they drastically redeem from that scene though, instantly. Nothing like that is even hinted at the rest of the time. I mean, if she's a damsel in distress, it's because she's getting force powers used against her, but she immediately uses them back. Yeah. She very much is the opposite of that label. And it's just that initial introduction is just trying to drive it home so hard that it's obnoxious.
Well, that's why I like the article I read, was that it was a female author, and I really wish I could find this article, but she even goes on to say that, we need to get over the whole damsel in distress thing, because guess what? Women are going to get caught. They are going to go, it's going to happen, as long as it's not something that happened, where the whole film that they're caught and whatnot. And of course, that was alluding back to the whole Black Widow thing from Age of Ultron, right, where she's in the prison cell for 5 seconds and everybody's, flipping their heads like, oh, damsel in distress, get over yourselves. And Rey does get caught, and she does have a little hurt put on her. And I'm glad they didn't shy away from that. I just, I think one of the main problems with it is that, they really gave her almost too much, right? Like that last lightsaber battle, I know Kylo Ren was injured and whatnot, but she, all of a sudden taps into the Force and is a better lightsaber. There's just some things about it that don't sit well with me. I enjoyed the movie. The last battle was great, but at the same time, I'm sitting there going, from what has been substantiated before from the prequels, from the original trilogy, she should not be able to do any of the stuff that she did with a plum.
Right. And I initially, I'm going to say, when you and I talked after seeing it, I agreed with you on that. After seeing it 2 more times, though, I've kind of come around to a different way of viewing that. And that, I think that's almost a little subtle nod to the prequels in a sense. Because, we see in the prequels, when Yoda's training the Padawans, they're 5 and 6 years old using lightsabers already. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that Rey did know how to use one, had her mind wiped, and when she touches Anakin's lightsaber in Maz Kanata's castle, the Force awakens in her. Hardy har har. And one thing I did pick up on that lightsaber duel is she spends a lot of the time running away. She's just trying to, deflect Kylo's lightsaber away, because Kylo is swinging it like crazy. He has no form. He doesn't even have form to his fight. And that's because he's never had to fight somebody with a lightsaber. He's not an expert swordsman like Anakin was, or like Obi-Wan was. He doesn't have any proper training like Luke did. He's just swinging wildly. He's just filled with rage, and he's going off the adrenaline. I mean, we see him twice, beat his wounds, and they specifically show the blood drip into the snow. Yeah. He's using that to fuel his rage, and he allows his rage to overtake him, and that's when he's just swinging wildly, and Rey eventually gets the upper hand and turns it on him. when he's about to throw her off the cliff, essentially. I did think it was a little ridiculous how she beat him, though. I will never get over that, how she all of a sudden deals 3 blows to him and gives him a nice little face scar.
Yeah.
And chops his lightsaber in half. That was absolutely ridiculous. There's no reason he couldn't have just used his force powers and just chucked her into the chasm.
Sure.
That's called plot furthering. That's probably my only complaint with that lightsaber duel, because Finn was awesome. Finn was better. Finn should have fought him.
Okay, so before we get into Finn, because I want to say Finn for last because of the disagreement you and I have.
I love John Boyega.
And we will get into that because he's our spirit animal. But since we're talking about Kylo Ren, so Kylo Ren, you've already gone off and said how much you love Kylo Ren.
Yes.
Obviously the internet has, taken its stabs at him, and so did we. The emo Kylo Ren Twitter account.
It's phenomenal.
It's phenomenal. And I couldn't pass up on the joke to write the skit for this episode to make him a little more emo. But look, he's really not that emo. It was a little easy to rag on him. One. Number two, there's a meme going around where he looks like JP from Grandma's Boy, and everybody says he looks like him. I don't think he looks like him whatsoever.
He looks like Snape.
Yeah, a little bit. That I will agree with, like a young Snape, right?
Somebody actually said that in our showing of The Force Awakens the second time I saw it. The guy sitting in the row behind me was like, holy hell, when did Severus Snape knock up Lily Potter?
Yeah. But Kylo Ren is an excellent character, an excellent young dark side character.
Yes.
Number one, they introduce Force Lock, which is outstanding. There was no force push, thank God. If I have to see that power one more time after the prequels, I'll probably shoot myself.
There actually was.
Was there a force push?
He throws Rey into the tree right before Finn fights him.
Yeah, it was like a lift and push, right? Like he lifted her and then he pushed her.
It was some prequel style shit.
Okay, it was. All right. But, after like 2 really hardcore force locks, I can forgive that.
Right.
But the force lock was amazing. It looked really good. There's no CGI involved whatsoever, right? God, what's his name?
Oscar Isaac.
Oscar Isaac, thank you. And Daisy Ridley did really good jobs of conveying the force lock through their acting. But Kylo Ren himself is there. If you noticed, when he has the mask on and when he has the mask off, he's almost 2 totally different people, right?
Mm-hmm. It's the dark and the light fighting.
Yeah. He's definitely more fragile when the mask is off, or actually when the mask is on, right? It's like almost like he doesn't feel that he should be this person. And when the mask is off, it's funny. It's like he's almost himself. Until obviously Daisy Ridley fights back and whatnot. But the way that he was written, like you said, definitely a worthy successor to Darth Vader. Definitely a worthy successor to Darth Vader. But that can be messed up in the next 2 movies. However, if this film is any indication of where they're taking Kylo Ren, look, killing Han Solo, like you said, that he would do something that Vader would never do. I only expect him to get more brutal and more angry as the series goes on.
I hope so.
Yeah, I really do. Adam Driver did a phenomenal job with that character. And he was, honestly, you couldn't take your eyes off of him when he was on screen. And that creepy part where he's talking about, Han Solo to Rey about, I know you think he's like a father figure to you, but he'll let you down, was very creepy indeed. So Kylo Ren, 2 thumbs up. I'm glad he was in the film. And all the hype leading up to him was well deserved.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kylo Ren just exceeded every one of my expectations. I'd be lying if I said he was not one of my primary concerns going into this film. Just because,
well, we said that when we talked about it on air, that we weren't too sure about Adam Driver because of his work with girls, right? That's really the only thing any of us. I mean, you knew a little bit more about him, but I know for myself that was my primary, that's the only thing I ever saw him in, and I wasn't too convinced that he could be this dark side, violent guy.
I wasn't worried about Adam Driver per se. I was worried about the character of Kylo Ren. Adam Driver, I had no concerns about. After seeing him in Girls, Inside Llewyn Davis, This Is Where I Leave You, I had no concerns about his ability to play a dark character, a conflicted character at least. I was mainly, well, let's be honest, Star Wars has had two good villains ever. Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine. Emperor Palpatine wasn't even really that well developed until Revenge of the Sith. And most of that is due to Ian McDiarmid's just phenomenal performance through all four of his movies. Whereas Darth Vader is menacing from the moment he appears, and you don't let up being afraid of him until he saves Luke in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And he's down one robotic hand. Kylo Ren, I think, has the potential to be on the same level, like legend-wise, as Vader by the time this trilogy is over. And I feel confident saying that after one film, because much like Vader, he had such a memorable introduction. That's something that people going to see this movie, if this is their introduction to Star Wars and they are underneath the age of like 13, they're going to remember that scene forever.
Abrams really framed that shot really well. The initial force lock where he just spins around and the hand is out, right? And it's like right in your face. And you're like, holy shit, what's going on? And then, of course, Oscar Isaac is Poe Dameron, completely frozen. And you're just like, I remember saying in the theater, holy shit, force lock. Really? This is going on?
Yeah. Actually, going back to that shot, while we're talking about how he framed it, Abrams and Daniel Mendel did a phenomenal job with that, because that's one of the first instances where everything is bathed in red. But before Kylo Ren shows up, notice the entire village is like covered in blue. And that's a theme that repeats throughout the entire film. Whenever Kylo Ren is on screen, it's dark, it's brooding, there's a lot of red. But also whenever there's something bad about to happen, like there's red lights. Like when the Falcon is picked up by Han, there's red lights coming in, and Finn's like, oh shit, it's the First Order. We gotta poison him. We're gonna blow the ship up with us on it. Obviously the blood on his mask. But the most notable usage of that is in the scene where Kylo Ren kills Han Solo. His face is perfectly divided. And I noticed the night it came out, we talked about this actually. Yes. Half his face is red, half of it is blue, while Han is pleading with him to come home with him. And it's while he's conflicted, he's like, you actually genuinely think, oh my God, are we really going to lose another villain like this? Like, yeah, I'd be kind of okay with it, but he was so cool. And then all of a sudden, the sun disappears. Starkiller Base has sucked out the sun. And you remember what Poe Dameron says, as long as there's light, there's still hope. And it's like symbolically, the light is gone, hope is gone, and then he's fully covered in red and ignites the lightsaber straight into Han's chest. It's like, oh my God! But when you realize that framing, it's so beautiful, and they do that in every one of the Kylo Ren scenes. It's the internal struggle is portrayed on the screen, not just through the character, but through just even the lighting, the set design. It's clear a lot of thought and care went into this.
Also, I think the importance of him killing Han Solo is not just that he did something Vader would never do or never did, but it's also important to know that he's not going to come back. Like, we're not going to see that final scene where he decides, "Oh, I'm a good guy again." Kylo Ren's going to be evil, and that's it. There's no coming back from killing Kin, right? And that's it's a refreshing thing, because that scene with Vader and Luke, and he saves Luke, is a very beautiful scene about the love of a father and whatnot.
Should never be repeated.
Exactly, should never be repeated. And I mean, JJ and whatnot set that up to where you're like, we're gonna get another scene of father-son love, and then they just say, no, go fuck yourself, and just end Han Solo, which a lot of people were upset about. But, if you know the story behind Harrison Ford and Han Solo, you know that he would prefer that Han Solo was dead. It's a great scene that he died in.
That was always his only stipulation, was he wanted the character to be killed off in the original trilogy. He felt the original trilogy was tragic enough. But he even said, coming back to The Force Awakens, like it was, it's his favorite role of the last 20 years to come back and reprise that, because it felt like he was home. He was back with Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill. He was with this new generation. He very much is the Obi-Wan of this film.
Yeah.
But he's Obi-Wan without a lightsaber. And this ties in. This is Han and Kylo Ren when Leia and Han are talking about him. One of their few moments of dialogue, but it was just so powerful. Han goes, well, Luke was a Jedi and he couldn't save him. What can I possibly do? And Leia looks at him and goes, well, Luke's a Jedi, but you're his father. And it's like, oh, damn! Like that hit me right there. That I welled up. In fact, when I saw it again tonight for the third time, that is still the only scene that made me well up, was that, because it's so much more powerful when you know what's going to come after that.
Yeah, definitely. Which got spoiled for me. I managed to avoid all spoilers until 10 minutes before curtain went up. So to the guy who did that on Facebook, I hope you lose your legs.
Yeah.
In a volcano, in a terrible movie.
Because you were not the chosen one.
Because you were not the chosen one. But Kylo Ren, excited to see what they do with him.
Let's touch on a couple of the other characters, though. There's so many new characters that got introduced in this.
Okay.
Let's kind of do some rapid fire here. Not all of them need as much of a section as the three leads. Poe Dameron. How do we feel about Poe?
Underutilized, a little underdeveloped. Oscar Isaac did a great job. I like the character for what he was in, right? But I really think they should have shown a little more how he got off Jakku. That just him showing up, I was kind of like, The scene was cool.
I was kind of okay with him just showing up, because this is the only way I rationalized it in my mind. He's the best pilot in the galaxy.
Yeah.
He's gonna find a way off. I didn't really need that explained. Do it in a one-shot comic if you want to. Do it off screen. But I agree, even just one little line of dialogue to Finn, like, hey, this is how I got off Jakku.
Well, I mean, he said, I woke up at night, you weren't there. I came back here, and it was like, but how? Like, right. They were hunting you.
As far as I'm aware, that's why there might be a little bit more of this guy than we've been led to believe. Not that he's force sensitive or anything, but I think it's all peaches and roses.
Yeah, I personally feel that this is Poe Dameron is the Wedge Antilles from the old EU, right? This is what we have come to expect from Wedge Antilles. And for those who don't know, Wedge was in the original trilogy, but
second Death Star.
Yeah, he was the leader of Rogue Squadron, but they didn't really focus on him too much, right, in the original trilogy. But if you read any of the Expanded Universe stuff, you know that he was a badass. He was very cocky, and he was a badass. I don't know how many times I can tell you how much of a badass Wedge Antilles was, but it's like Poe Dameron is Wedge Antilles from the Expanded Universe, right? And they're putting him in here. I mean, there's obviously some differences, but this is like what you would expect from the best fighter pilot in the Resistance, right?
Now, Oscar Isaac actually said something really interesting. He just said this 2 or 3 days ago, so I'm really happy we're doing this show now. He did an interview with GQ, and they're talking about his character, and he said in the original draft of the script, Poe Dameron was supposed to die in this film. He was supposed to be killed off. Abrams was going to kill him off, but after he gave the role to Isaac, Abrams and Kasdan sat down and rewrote his role. They decided they didn't want to kill him off. They're like, well, we don't want to underutilize this guy. We want to keep this guy around. We really like him.
Well, I mean,
Isaac said, that's the vibe he got.
Well, that gives them an out too, right? Because let's say Rey, does wind up being Skywalker's daughter, right? If she winds up being the best pilot, that means we've gotten 3 Skywalkers who are not only Jedi, but also the best pilots in, you know what I mean? Like, so now they can have this hotshot fighter pilot. and then they can just have their Jedi, and it doesn't have to be all wrapped up into one.
Mm-hmm.
So
he, Poe has a really cool backstory. Read Shattered Empires, the comic. For anybody listening to this, if you haven't read it, it's all about his parents. So it's really cool. It's really cool. It's all about Poe's parents, and they actually made the backstory of the character to reflect Oscar Isaac a little bit, which is something I really respect about Abrams and Kasdan. Made his home planet Yavin. It's not explicitly said in the movie. His home planet's Yavin 4, which is modeled after Guatemala, which is where Oscar Isaac is from. I found just those little details just enhance the universe so much. This guy, though, obviously underused. This was focusing much more on Rey and Finn. I think Poe takes a much more prominent role in the next film now, especially with there being no Han Solo now. He's poised to step up as that cocky hotshot.
He is the new dashing rogue.
And he had some just fantastic dialogue. Who talks first? Do I talk first? Do you talk first? I don't really know how this works.
Yeah.
He's mouthing off to Kylo Ren, who he knows what Kylo Ren is capable of, and he just doesn't give a crap. So
I love I can't really understand you with all of this. I was laughing so hard.
I still laughed on my third viewing. I'm still laughing at that. Moving on though. General Hux. General Nux.
Or now I gotta do that to Ray now. I'm gonna have to change it. I'm gonna be like General Hux. But General Hux, loved him.
Domhnall Gleeson. What a career year for that guy.
The thing is I wanted to see him more in his Nazi propaganda, given the speech when they fire off the Starkiller base, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to see more of that version of him, because that version was just so mesmerizing, right?
Dude, I still get chills. I get chills when I watch that.
It's the rest of it, obviously seems
he's the Grand Moff Tarkin of the trilogy.
He is, but there's an interesting relationship, like duality with him and Kylo Ren. Like they are the stepchildren of Snoke. Vying and fighting
for that affection.
Exactly. And the thing is, though, is that Hux, from what we saw, has no force powers, right?
He doesn't. So, I'm convinced he doesn't.
Okay, so he doesn't have any force powers, so he's really trying to take that step over Ren, right, as the leader, the motivator, the intelligent strategist and whatnot. And I would really like to see more of that in the next film. I want to see Ren develop into this, like, completely angry destroyer of Sith Lords and whatnot. But I also want to see those two kind of like bump heads and really go at it with each other to see which one is really in Snoke's favor.
Right. And honestly, I'm willing to bet that it's Hux. It's alluded to, it's outright said so many times that Snoke is just using you for your power. And it's like everybody knows it except for Kylo Ren. Yeah. But it's clear that, Snoke respects General Hux enough, to put him in charge of Starkiller Base and in charge of the training of these stormtroopers, etc. But Kylo Ren has no respect for this guy as a soldier. I mean, he even quips at him, when Hux says, "My men are trained from being babies." And he's like, "Well, they're certainly skilled at committing high treason," and then just walks away.
Yeah.
These guys hate each other. It's fantastic, and it's so great to see Gleeson out of his element. He normally plays the good guy. He plays the hero. And then to see him, the Starkiller Base speech is one of the highlights of this film. Top 5 highlights right there.
Yeah.
The veins are popping out of his head. I forget that that's Domhnall Gleeson because he's screaming.
And you were telling me,
Hitler salute at the end is just caps off.
And like you were saying, is that they actually made him watch old Nazi propaganda to really get that down. And when they have that close up on his face when he's screaming, it takes you back to 1938. It really does. If you ever watched any of that stuff or watched any other actors who have performed, or just in other movies where they obviously have performed like that, and you're just like, that's wow, wow, it's so mesmerizing. I would really like to see more of Hux because he's poised to actually be better than Grand Moff Tarkin at this point. Like Tarkin was he felt kind of like
late Peter Cushing.
Yeah, the great late Peter Cushing. But Tarkin was more like, he always felt to me like he was like royalty, right? And not so much as like a propaganda soldier. And this propaganda soldier, very entertaining. Like, you know, I felt bad for actually watching what I was watching.
Yeah. But let's go. Let's keep it on the bad guys here for another minute or two. Captain Phasma. One of my only disappointments in the movie, legitimately only disappointments. I said for months leading up to this on the show that she was going to be the Boba Fett of the trilogy. I did not know how right that was going to be. 5 minutes of screen time, maybe. And she was built up so much in the marketing. When the movie ended, all I could think is, oh my God, I can't wait to hear Ray rage about this.
Right.
Ray and I were so excited for this character.
There's really not much to say about Phasma except, where were you?
In a trash compactor.
In a trash compactor. Really, it's just, obviously they're going to do something with the character, right? You're not going to hire Brienne
Gwendolyn Christie.
Thank you, yes. Gwendolyn Christie to be in 5 minutes of a movie for no reason. You know what I mean? Like, there has to be
her around like crazy.
Yeah, like there has to be some sort of end game to her. So we'll see. I'm pretty sure that she's going to be the main antagonist to Finn, like in the next movie, right? Because he put her in a trash compactor. I'm
in charge now, Phasma.
And you know what? Let's get off of Captain Phasma and let's actually move to who I know was the star of the film for both you and I. And obviously, I will punch you in the face. John Boyega's Finn. And God,
John Boyega.
Let me tell you something. Me and you and Ray, when we were talking about this movie coming in, we all said, y'all motherfuckers need to watch out for John Boyega because he's coming. And man, did he come with it. Not only is his promotional stuff, the interviews he's doing for it, all the press he's doing for it are just absolutely phenomenal and make you love him more as a person. But Finn was the most interesting character on screen at all times. He has so far the backstory that you want to know the most, right? Like, yeah, we're all wondering if Rey really is Skywalker's kid, but I want to know more about it.
It's pretty obvious.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious. But Finn, there are a lot of things that are alluded about him throughout the film. And one of the main things that I know you and I disagree on completely is whether or not Finn is a Jedi. So we'll get to that argument towards the end, right? But Finn is the ultimate crossover character, right? He's a little bit of the old, he's a little bit of the new. And I think the letting Boyega off the leash to do his, comedic moments, right? Like the scene with Phasma where he's like, well, I'm in charge now, Phasma. I'm in charge. It was so good. It made it feel more modern and not like they were just stuck in the 70s. And he's an excellent lead. And of course, a lot of controversy around him because of the whole Black Stormtrooper thing. On the second viewing that I went to, I actually, as a joke, yelled out when he pulled off the mask, "Black Stormtrooper, really?" A lot of people laughed. It was really funny. But with that being said, I am so interested in where they're taking Finn the next two movies. In fact, if they wanted to do a Finn solo film at some point, I'm totally down.
Yeah, I jokingly said to you on the phone that I was talking to Ray. I was like, when I got out of The Force Awakens, one of my thoughts was, all I want for an anthology film now is a Poe and Finn buddy cop film.
Buddy cop movie, yes, sir.
That's all I need in life. Cancel every other anthology film. Cancel Rogue One, even though it's already almost done with production. And just give that to me. Give it to me. I want more John Boyega and Oscar Isaac on screen. The chemistry between those two, even though it was so limited, every moment counted. They made the most of it, just like John Boyega and Daisy Ridley did. The chemistry of this cast,
which obviously sprung some ideas into people's heads that that Poe Dameron and Finn were going to be the first Star Wars gay couple.
Yeah, I see, and I obviously I don't care what they do. I really don't. It's Star Wars. It's it's gonna happen. It's normal.
I'm just,
Who
I'm not,
cares?
well, yeah, it is normal. They have a lot of chemistry. I just don't think it's that chemistry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it seemed more
My
like
money
we're
would still
best
be on
friends.
Finn and Ray
Yeah.
getting together by the end. But I know we jokingly said it a few times before it came out. Is Finn Lando's son? And my initial thought when I saw the movie was, God, I hope he's not.
Yeah.
I don't want them to reveal that he is. Please don't. I don't need everything to be coincidental. It doesn't need to keep coming back to these same families. But they drop a line in it. Finn does specifically to Ray about halfway through when they're in Maz Kanata's castle. Where he goes, I was taken as a baby from a family that I'll never know. And it just made me think, like, God, are they leaving the door open to see if Billy D. Williams is in good enough health to come back for a tiny role in episode 8? Or even to name drop him? That Finn, it isn't even his son, like, is distantly related to him. And, the First Order we've seen is so determined to get back at the heroes of the old rebellion that maybe they took Lando's kid. They took Han's kid. Well, we'll take Lando's kid too.
Yeah.
I don't want them to do it. Finn is awesome on his own. Don't ever give me his backstory.
I don't think Abrams is going to, but I think there is going to be a backstory, and this is where we're going to get into the disagreement right now. Yeah. About whether or not Finn is a Jedi or not. And I'm actually going to let you say your piece first, because after seeing it 3 times and really focusing on it, on, my part of the argument, I think I have some pretty solid evidence to support mine. So go ahead.
I mean, I really don't think that they're going to make him a Jedi. It's not that I have a whole lot of antecedent evidence for it. It's just... We were led to believe from the marketing that he was going to be a Jedi, right? Mm-hmm. Wielding the lightsaber. Oh my God, I saw that clip, the little Instagram clip they put up in like August, and I was like, yep, that's it. I'm not watching anything else, because that got me so much more hype than even Chewie, we're home, was that scene of John Boyega with the Anakin Skywalker lightsaber. I jumped up and ran around my living room looking at that. It was awesome. My family has proof. But as we all know, you don't have to be a Jedi to wield a lightsaber. Finn was trained from infancy to be a warrior, to be specifically trained for combat, and it's evident. I mean, he's popping off headshots left and right. He's a very skilled gunner. But he also gets the crap kicked out of him by the riot control stormtrooper on Takadona, who whips out the Force Pike, or whatever version of the Force Pike that is.
That dude was more awesome than Phasma. That's all I'm saying.
That dude should have been Phasma. That should have been Phasma. Mm-hmm. That is something I will keep coming back to, and Ray reminds me of daily that should have been Phasma. He literally messages me in the middle of the day. Just your daily reminder, the trooper that Finn fights should have been Phasma. But however, it's... I feel like making him a Jedi cheapens, at least right now. If you want to make him a Jedi, reveal it at the end of episode 9. Don't do it right now. This is very much, it's obvious that this is going to be Rey's journey. I think making him a Jedi in this film, at least, or even hinting at it, takes away from the impact of her. I mean, she is the title. The Force is awakening in Rey. And I honestly went into this hoping to God that she was not Force sensitive, as bad as that sounds. I wanted John Boyega to be a Jedi so badly. I would have done unspeakable acts to see him be a Jedi. I'm not saying it's completely out of the picture. It's just I haven't seen enough evidence in the movie to show that he's a Jedi. I mean, there's and the most prevalent fan theory that I've seen that points towards it is actually Finn's introduction in the movie when he's on Jakku. After his, there's a book called Before the Awakening that you read, and it tells about Finn right before the Force Awakens, when he's in training simulators. the trooper who dies and wipes his blood on Finn's mask is actually his best friend. That's the only trooper he feels a connection with. He's always like picking him up and hurrying him along, Finn is top of his class, etc. And even Phasma, even Hux himself notes it. But there's a scene where Kylo Ren shares an exchange. He kind of glances out of nowhere over at Finn. And a lot of people take it to be like, and I know it's one of your points, so I'm sorry that I'm bringing it up now.
No, you're fine.
That he sensed the Force in Finn. My only counterpoint to that is, if he was supposedly trained from infancy, why wouldn't he have been picked out before? Why wouldn't Snoke, if he's as powerful as he supposedly is, have not taken him? Because Snoke has more than one apprentice. He has more than just Kylo Ren. Even though it's not explicitly stated in the movie, he has more than one apprentice. He has more than just Kylo Ren, the Knights of Ren. I have to think that if Kylo Ren sensed that Finn was Force sensitive, he wouldn't have just killed him right there.
Okay.
Or taken him straight to Snoke.
All right, that's a good point. All right. However, all right, you got to remember that the title is called The Force Awakens, right? So let me put it to you like this. If the Force is dormant, obviously, if it's dormant, okay, you can't sense it. Right? Like if you're not using it, you've never used it, you're not in tune with it, you're just not going to sense it, because that explains Rey, right? Why Rey was left on Jakku and all that stuff to get her as far away from the Force, from anybody who could teach it to her, so that she wouldn't be picked up. Okay. Now that scene, granted, if he sensed the Force, but I think it's more like he sensed something stirring, not the Force, but something a little bit different. Now you got to remember that these guys are completely brainwashed to be stormtroopers, right? They see their friends die in battle all the time, correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Why was it that moment of all moments that all of a sudden his brainwashing just stopped working? They even say in the movie he has no history whatsoever of his brainwashing being broken. And actually, it was his first firefight.
It's his very first mission.
It's his very first mission. But think about it like this. It's the very first mission where they're killing innocent civilians, right? Now, nobody else in that stormtrooper brigade had a problem doing what they did, right? None of them batted an eye, but he did. Okay? That's number one, all right? That something in him, the light side, made it seem wrong, was able to break the brainwashing. Number two, he's in the TIE fighter with Poe Dameron, correct? Poe goes, can you fire that thing? And he goes, well, I can fire a blaster. I've never done one of these. And Poe goes on to explain it. Now, it sounds absolutely complicated to shoot those guns, correct? To track and shoot.
Yes and no.
Yes and no. Okay. But still, someone who's never touched it before, all of a sudden, is starting to shoot. And then when he gets into the Millennium Falcon, he even says, I'm getting a lot better at this. Only 2 times behind behind ship's blaster. Okay. Then there's a very pivotal scene that everyone always skips over. I've never heard anyone bring this up so far, read about it. There's the scene where Maz Cantina's cantina is destroyed, right? And they're climbing out of the rubble, and Finn goes, I've got to go save Rey, but I need a weapon. And he's holding the lightsaber in his hand. And Maz looks at him and goes, you have a weapon. Now, in any other character, if it wasn't Maz, any other character, I'd have been like, they're just pointing to the fact that he's got a weapon in his hand. But she is Force sensitive, and everything she says, right? Like she even said to him, you have the eyes of somebody that the same eyes as somebody else I've seen. You're running away from something. We don't know exactly what that means, but there's a lot of stuff behind what Maz says. And I'm thinking that when she told him that he has a weapon, it's kind of like her telling him, you'll know how to use it, right? The problem with Finn is that he doesn't have any confidence in himself, right? He's a coward for most of the movie.
Until the third act. Until
the third act, but it's over Rey. And this is the final point that I'm coming to. They meet, and all of a sudden they're connected. And the only way that's possible in the Star Wars universe is if you're Force connected, like Luke and Leia, right? Yes, they were twins, they were brother and sister, but because of the Force, they had a deeper connection. It's like when they met, they knew, they knew something about that. They were connected in some way. And Finn and Rey have that connection, right? They have that connection that seems like it's a Force connection. Now, I'm not saying that Finn becomes a Jedi in the next movie. I actually think maybe he starts to learn Force powers by the end of the next movie. But in the third movie, especially now you're saying that there's the Knights of Ren and all this stuff, I'm sorry, but Luke and Rey are not going to be enough to take on Kylo Ren, the Knights of Ren, and Snoke. It's not going to happen.
And I mean, you make great points here, right? And I think that Abrams and Kasdan deliberately left it ambiguous so that they could hear us go off about crazy things like this.
Sure.
It's part of what J.J. Abrams does. He screws with you, and then he doesn't come back to do the next film. He leaves it to somebody else. They've already promised, the next one's going to be completely different, right? And so I'm really interested to see what Rian Johnson does. If they don't outright say it or show some hint that the greater chunk of the audience could pick up on by the end of episode 8, then I'm going to be pretty firmly entrenched in the camp of he's not going to be one. I mean, right now, I still fully agree he could be one. I personally don't think he will be, though. At this point in time, from what we've seen, I don't think he will be. The other thing is, how big of a time gap is going to be between these films? Because, that determines a lot. They retcon it. Oh, we did Finn's training off screen.
Yeah.
We did it off screen. We're going to explain it away in an 8-issue comic series, which I would be all over. But if somebody was to be Force sensitive out of the new leads that's not Rey, I would actually almost lean towards Poe.
See, I don't think they'll do Poe. I think that takes away, that's going to take away from what Poe is good at, right? Maybe he's Force sensitive and he uses it for the X-Wing and whatnot, but I think keeping Poe a normal guy, like a normal fighter pilot, cocky and whatnot, is a better way to connect with the audience, right? Like, yes, it's Rey's. See, here's the thing, right? Another reason why I think they'll make Finn. I think Finn is the eyes of the audience, right? And through Finn, we're going to grow into whatever he's going to grow into. And he has a lot of potential to be that finally that Jedi that, like Luke Skywalker, we grow with them, right? Because Rey has already jumped the gun. She's doing Jedi mind tricks. She's picking up the lightsaber and beating Dark Lords of the Sith.
Finn is essentially the personification of the audience in Star Wars. The way he reacts to everything is how a fanboy would react if they were cast in this film.
And see, a fanboy would want to be a Jedi. Just saying.
That's why it's so perfect for John Boyega. He is a massive Star Wars fanboy. The only way that I see them making him a Jedi is that if they make him one and say, he's not super uber powerful, but we see him taking on some of the Knights of Ren and stuff. We don't even know if the Knights of Ren are Force sensitive. We don't even know if they're Force sensitive. We don't know who they are. We don't know anything about them. And if they do truly bring the Skywalker legacy to a close in episode 9, like they keep hinting that they're going to, and quite honestly, like they need to, that would insinuate, that Luke's gone, Leia's gone, Kylo Ren's going to die, and Rey is going to die. Finn takes up the mantle of rebuilding the Jedi then.
I don't know if they're going to actually kill off Rey, or even kill off Kylo Ren as well. To close the Skywalker chapter doesn't need to end with everybody dying, first off. But, look, nobody wants to watch further movies about the great-great-grandchildren of Anakin Skywalker, right? We get it.
Right.
The light and the dark. We get that. I think if they go anywhere with these films after episode 9, they need to take it back to the past. We've said many a times, Knights of the Old Republic is a beautiful way to go, especially because other than the comics, in the old EU, it's unexplained, it's unexplored territory. You can bring back characters like Yoda, Mace Windu, You can, younger versions, obviously,
Qui-Gon.
or Qui-Gon, or you can go way further back and just do everything, that you want to do, with your own set of characters, new sets of rules, new sets of characters, new sets of places to visit and whatnot. And
this is why the EU got wiped.
Yeah, it's so that you can go do anything you want to do. I think going into the future, after the Skywalker saga you're almost setting yourself up for failure, right? Like if you go into the past, you can do whatever the hell you want to do. If you go too far in the future, there's really not much that you can do to enhance like the technology and all that stuff that you already have going on. But if you go into the past and you take things away, it's a different ball game, right? Like you put it in a different box, and now all of a sudden there's new ways to go about things.
Right. So I mean, I guess it's we're kind of getting towards the end of this.
Sure.
Where do we see the franchise going from here? It's obviously a great start to a new trilogy and to the Disney era. Where do we see them going from here? Next year, obviously, we have Rogue One, followed by Episode 8, not even 6 months later, before they get back on the yearly release schedule.
I think Rogue One's going to be a hit. I think it's going to be really well done. It's probably going to be one of the better sci-fi war movies that we've ever seen, especially with the cast that they have involved. Anytime Mads Mikkelsen's name comes up in something, I get excited.
Mads Mikkelsen, Alan Tudyk, Felicity Jones, Donnie Yen.
Episode 8, I think, is going to be your linchpin in the main story series, because everyone is going to always compare the second film of a trilogy to Empire, right? It's going to be right. So it needs to be good. It doesn't need to be as, I guess, dramatic as that ending to Empire, because guess what? You're never going to recreate the scene or ever top the scene of "No, Luke, I am your father." That shit will never happen.
And if you try to top that, then you're setting yourself up for failure, and you deserve to not make these.
Exactly. I think where the Star Wars films stumble is in the proposed Fett Solo movie and the Ben Kenobi movie. I think those two films are not going to go as well as they think they are, for two very big reasons. One, you're taking two of the most iconic Star Wars characters and trying to recast them. I'm sorry, but I don't want to see a young Han Solo. I don't. Harrison Ford is Han Solo. They tried that. They tried that shit with young Indiana Jones, and it didn't work out. I'm sorry. I appreciate the fact that you want to, really give something to all the people that me and you always complain about, the people who try to legitimize Boba Fett, even though he accidentally gets knocked into the Sarlacc pit. Like, I'm sorry, he's not that badass. And I just don't want to see anybody else but Han Solo. Not right now. I'm sorry. I just don't. And then Ben Kenobi. I'm sorry. Obi-Wan was only interesting when he was training Luke, because Ewan McGregor as Ben Kenobi was absolutely the pits. I thought,
God, please don't say that. Oh, that hurt my heart.
I don't like him. I mean, and not even Ewan. It's not even Ewan McGregor, right? Like, I like Ewan McGregor.
It's the dialogue.
Exactly. Like, he's like way too upbeat and positive. And I'm just, you're in the middle of
George Lucas. It's George Lucas's
You're
fault.
in the middle of a war. But I mean, that's the thing, is I don't want to see a young Ben Kenobi being trained by Qui-Gon. Like, I have no interest in that. There are
if they were to do Kenobi, it would definitely have to be set between episodes 3 and 4 so they could bring Ian McGregor back.
Well,
I mean, imagine what Ian McGregor could do with that role with a good writer and a good director. Just imagine what he could do.
But I mean, even still, like, Kenobi's not an interesting.
No, wait,
he's not an interesting character. At least at this juncture, I would rather see how Palpatine finds Darth Maul and trains him.
Ugh, no, I don't want any more of Darth Maul. Darth Maul was butchered beyond belief. Never again.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing is that I managed to skip those episodes of the Clone Wars, because once I saw the promo stuff of him on spider legs, I was like, nope, done. Nope, you've gone too far.
Yeah. I mean, I'll back it up for a second to episode 8, then we'll get into some anthology stuff. Episode 8, the script is completed. They start filming here in a few weeks. But Greg Grunberg came out and said that J.J. Abrams, obviously has read the script. He's going to be a producer on the film, and liked Rian Johnson's script for it so much that he wished he was directing it.
Right.
They actually wanted J.J. to stay on and do the trilogy, and he said no. God, I got to be wondering, is he actually seriously rethinking it at this point? Does he really wish he could stay on? Because if so, there's still time to get him on board for episode 9. But, all joking aside, though, we all know how much I hate Colin Trevorrow. Seriously, Rian Johnson, I think, has the potential to make a movie that could be on par with Empire with episode 8. And that's tall order. That's fighting words for me to say. Empire is my favorite movie of all time. In my opinion, it is the best movie of all time, from any franchise, any originality, any spectrum. That is the greatest movie that will ever be made. And somehow I have this crazy belief that episode 8 could match it.
I just have let's be honest, for expectations, right? It only has to beat Attack of the Clones and come remotely close to Empire for it to be a satisfying film. Because I'm not going to go into going, this is going to be Empire. If you go into a sequel, whether it's just the second film, but there's no planned trilogy, or it is the planned trilogy of anything, and you're like, this better be like Empire, then you are setting your expectations way too high. Because
exactly.
As we just said, nothing will ever beat the Luke, I am your father line. It's just never going to happen.
I'm just saying, I feel like this has the potential to come as close as possible to that. That's my personal thing. That's my personal thoughts.
Well, the cast is set, right? Like, the cast can do it. I have faith that the cast can do a phenomenal job.
Kasdan is writing it.
Yeah.
Lawrence Kasdan is coming back to write it with Rian Johnson. Rian Johnson's a phenomenal writer. Did Looper, Brick, Brothers Bloom. Great writer, great director. Have absolute faith in him. I saw that he was directing it. I got almost as excited as when I saw J.J. Abrams. But the cast, we already know one of the new cast members coming on for this, and it's Benicio del Toro. They brought an Academy Award winner into this. Now,
he better be a bad guy.
They won't say, because they put a gag order on him. He was saying too much. He was hinting that he's playing either a dark side user or a bounty hunter. Oh God, please be a dark side user. Please. Please, please, please.
Kiko agrees.
And that his role is supposed to be for episodes 8 and 9. Now, he actually has a history with Star Wars. He was originally set to be Darth Maul. And literally, weeks before filming, looked at Lucas and said, this script is terrible. I'm not doing this. Left, went on to go do Traffic and win the Academy Award. Del Toro, great actor. He's going to bring so much to this universe. Utmost fate in episode 8. Episode 9 is where I start getting a little scared, but that's still several years off. If episode 8's fantastic, then do whatever you want to with 9. Jump the shark, who cares? Anthology films, though, I really, really, really wish they were not doing Han Solo. I don't want to see that role recast. I've been pretty vocal about that. That I think there's ways you could make that interesting. Every other character that would be in that movie would be interesting to me, just not young Han Solo. I don't want that. Just like how I don't want a Kenobi film. The only anthology film that sounds interesting to me is Rogue One. And I can't help but think now they should be putting that out after the trilogy is finished. I think they're actually making a huge mistake by putting it out next year and not waiting until after episode 9. Not filming just all 3 of these movies back to back, Lord of the Rings style. It's going to start confusing the general public. Those who aren't as in tune with the universe are going to get confused with Rogue One. I think Rogue One's still going to be a hit. It's still going to be bigger than most movies next year. But that's when the public's going to kind of start deciding, okay, maybe this isn't what we want. We just want episodes 8 and 9. Just give those to us. Give us the good stuff. Give us the good core stories. Not that this isn't good, but we're kind of confused. Weren't we just seeing old man Luke, and now all of a sudden there's no Jedi in this? This is Saving Private Ryan in Star Wars? I don't know. Still think it's going to be great. Gareth Edwards, we love him here at Neek. You're going to do a great job with it. So, since we are now pretty much wrapped up, where does this sit in your rankings? Where does The Force Awakens sit?
Number 3 or number 2? I can't put it over. Okay, so number 1 obviously is Empire. It will always be Empire. Always. I don't know if I can put it higher than A New Hope. Just because I don't know if I can ever put, the only reason Empire is because it's the continuation, right? And it does, that twist is just amazing. If the first time you ever see that part, if you don't, I was lucky enough to not grow up in today's society where it's, a popular pop culture reference and whatnot. But I don't know if I can put The Force Awakens higher than A New Hope, because A New Hope started it all. It's that Star Wars. It is Star Wars. So I'm I guess it's kind of even right now at the moment, followed by Jedi, and then I don't ever rank the prequels because they're just kind of a lump sum of crap. But I mean, I don't actually hate the prequels. It's just, look, I watch them from time to time, but it's still they're bad movies. I mean, you cannot deny that. So Force Awakens probably 2A, 2B with New Hope. Yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much of the same opinion. Obviously, Empire number 1. Empire will always be number 1. Because I even flirt with A New Hope, or excuse me, Star Wars. I call it Star Wars. I don't call it A New Hope. I flirt with that being a little bit higher, just because it's so much more fantasy based than any of the other films are. It really is truly unique among the Star Wars films. After that, they all, shared common themes.
Yeah.
But, we all know the story of Star Wars. It was largely saved in post-production by Lucas's then wife, Marcia Lucas, who was his editor. It was an incoherent mess when it was filmed. I think I would have to go Empire and then do a 2A, 2B. I've been going back and forth in my mind, does The Force Awakens beat out A New Hope? Trying to approach it without a recency bias. It's firmly, though, in my top 3, without a doubt. Jedi is just behind it. I mean, the Battle of Endor is still spectacular, right? And then, of course, the prequels after that. It's an exciting time. It is an exciting time to be a Star Wars fan.
It is.
Domhnall Gleeson and John Boyega actually both say it best in the Comic-Con video that they released. Domhnall says, he was sitting in this room with all these legends and these people who he's sure are gonna go on to become legends themselves. It's so perfect when he says that it's centered on a shot of Boyega and Daisy Ridley. Because you really do get that sense that those two are just about ready to rock it off. I mean, John Boyega already is. Then Boyega ends it by saying, this is an important part of everyone's history. It's an exciting time to be a part of it. And that really is embodying the audience. This is something we never thought we'd see again. I never thought I'd see another trilogy. I did not want another trilogy. I've been extremely vocal about that. I was nervous up until that opening crawl started. Then I see that first line, Skywalker's vanished. Oh my God, I was all in. It was real. It was real, and the man tears flowed.
Obviously, I told you the story about how me and my 2 friends grabbed hands and cried when the crawl started. Well, not full-blown cry, but we got misty-eyed and tears did stream down. But
I sobbed.
My nervousness did not subside until the opening scene with Kylo Ren. Once that happened, I was like, okay, it's Star Wars. And it's a modern Star Wars, and it's an old Star Wars at the same time. It is the perfect pass the torch without feeling like a pass the torch the film, or pass the torch film. Jesus, it's late. What is the latest Neek show we've ever done? But with that, Josh, do you have any last thoughts on it, or were those your last thoughts?
I think that about wraps it up. I mean, there's not really much more we can say without getting repetitive, right?
True.
Just Actually, if you've already seen it and you have not seen it in IMAX, I highly,
Oh,
highly,
yes.
highly encourage to go see it in IMAX.
As somebody who's seen it in IMAX and 2D, the IMAX is so much more immersive, and
Yeah,
it's so
I
well
saw
done.
I saw it in 2D tonight. I've now seen it in all three formats. I saw it in IMAX 3D my first showing, saw it in 3D my second, and then I saw it in 2D tonight. IMAX 3D far and away the best.
Yeah.
And that's because J.J. Abrams filmed part of this with IMAX cameras. One can only hope that Rian Johnson does even more with Episode 8. I think he will. It's a fantastic experience. Go see it in IMAX. Go to a matinee if you need to. I know IMAX isn't that cheap for everybody. Go see it. Do yourself a favor and go see it. It's probably my favorite. It's my favorite movie since The Dark Knight in IMAX, and I habitually go to IMAX when I find out the film's been filmed in it. So go see it. It's immersive. It's great. The sound quality is better. It's do it. You owe it to yourself. Do it.
All around better. And my final thoughts are, if you have not gone multiple times, please do. It needs to be number 2 at least. We need to beat out Titanic, guys. We can do this. Star Wars needs to be in the top 3 again of all time. So with that, I am Kiku, the Glorious Geek Samurai. He was Josh, Rachel Finney, the Demon Sour Cream. Stay tuned, guys, because new episodes of Neek are coming, and they're going to be funnier, they're going to be louder, and there will be another episode where I fart so loud that everybody hears it. So with that, keep it nerdy, and we'll catch you next time.